Hello again everyone from Tokyo, Japan, and welcome back to Japan Vintage Camera. I'm coming to you today from inside my workshop. I'm in here for a couple of reasons. The second reason is it's rather cold and rainy outside and not a good day to make videos outdoors. And the primary reason is because I'm very busy in my shop for the last few days. Last week we were on our winter holiday in Hokkaido, and though we were only gone for about 5 days, I received maybe 3 weeks worth of orders during that 5 days and got quite buried. So I've been working quite hard the last few days, getting everything boxed up and labeled and prepared to be shipped out to places around the world. I have orders going to Europe, Australia, Africa, other parts of Asia, America, Canada, so it's been quite busy recently. I thank all of you who have ordered cameras from me. Everything is pretty much ready to go. I shipped a large number of cameras on Thursday and Friday, more going out this afternoon, and of course I've got more going out on tomorrow and Monday. So all of you should start receiving your cameras within the week, and hopefully most will be delivered by the end of next week. So thank you very much. Today's video is going to be about an Olympus rangefinder camera. This particular camera is the Olympus 35 DC, which was one of a number of similar cameras introduced by Olympus in the early 1970s. There were 4 popular cameras which all shared the similar design. The most, I guess, similar camera was the Olympus 35 RD, which is pretty much the same camera with the same lens but with manual operation. There was a slightly more compact version which was called the Olympus 35 RC, which features a shutter speed control knob on the top. And then of course there was the Olympus 35 SP, which was kind of like the big brother of all of them. And other cameras in other lines which came out around the same time were the Olympus Trip 35 and of course the Olympus OM series. This was a really big year for Olympus, and they, I guess, entered the photography market with both feet running. And all the cameras which they produced at this time were really quite good. And even today, they are still wonderful performers. A lot of you have probably noticed I don't normally have these for sale in my store. This is the first one I've had available in quite some time. And the reason is that these are quite popular in Japan and they get really high prices. Just like the RD, the SP, and the RC. These cameras in good condition sell for so much here that it's really difficult for me to buy one here and then export it and there be any meaningful margin left over. So the only time I really have these cameras available is when I acquire a large lot of cameras and one or more of these is kind of hidden somewhere in the box. So I'll be listing this camera for sale shortly in my online stores. For those of you who are new to my channel, I sell Japanese cameras in my online store, japanvintagecamera.com. I also have an Etsy store, and it is also called Japan Vintage Camera. And I have an eBay store as well. So I'll be listing this camera for sale shortly on my online stores. So if you're interested, please take a look. I'll post links to my stores in the description below the video. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Olympus 35 DC, starting at the top. We have the film rewind knob here with a pop-out lever, and this is pretty much the same knob which comes on the RD and the RC and similar to the one on the SP. Next we have the flash shoe, and this is a hot shoe designed for use with an automatic flash system which Olympus introduced on this particular camera. Next to the flash hot shoe, we have a small window with the letters GN, which stands for guide number, which is a system you use when operating a flash on cameras. And this was a kind of a big marketing thing around this time. Through the 1960s, progress with lens designs, light meters, and shutter and aperture mechanisms had gone quite well. And flash photography was kind of the next big marketing ploy, or I guess subject for manufacturers to help sell cameras. And not only did Olympus introduce this system, it was also sold by Yashica, Canon, Minolta, and the others. Moving over here, we have the shutter release button, and like the 35 SP, The Olympus 35 DC has program automatic operation. The SP offers a manual mode. The DC is fully automatic, but still has the program system. And what that means is that you can point the camera at a particular subject, and the camera will meter on that subject as you push the shutter button about halfway down. So you can have a fair amount of control over exposure compensation by using the program system. So if you want to, say, lighten up a dark area, you can point the camera at a darker area, push the shutter button halfway down, turn it to the dark area, and that will increase the exposure. Or you can do the opposite. If you're trying to reduce the exposure on a bright area, you point it at a brighter area, and that will stop down the camera and I guess pick up the shutter speed a little bit. So quite a simple system. Of course, next to the shutter button, we have the film winding and shutter charging lever. Moving to the back of the camera, we have the viewfinder eyepiece, and it has this plastic thing around here to prevent you from scratching your glasses. Next to that, we have this button which says BLC, and that stands for backlight compensation. So it's supposed to be something similar to the spot meter system on the Olympus 35. And when you use this system, it is supposed to meter for an area more specifically around the rangefinder focusing patch in the middle. It's kind of, I'm not exactly sure how it works because it doesn't have a separate or focused light meter like the 35 SP does. You can find the light meter eye here on this side. But supposedly it works, from what I've heard from people who've used this camera. Personally, I haven't fired or shot any film with the DC yet. It's a pretty good system and allows you to get to more accurate exposures. Moving to the bottom here, we have a button here which releases the film winding mechanism and allows you to rewind the film. And here we have the battery chamber cover. Like other cameras of the era, this camera was designed to use an MR9 Mercury battery. But one positive thing about the Olympus cameras compared to other makes is that you can easily use an LR44 or SR44 battery in one of these cameras without requiring an adapter. All you have to do is when you take off the battery cover, you'll see a contact on the bottom, which is a piece of chrome-plated metal. And all you have to do is kind of bend that up a little bit with your fingertips. So it's a little bit closer toward the bottom of the camera. And that will allow you to put in LR44 or SR44 battery. And it will maintain good contact. So a really good feature about these old Olympus cameras. Over here we have a standard 1/4 inch tripod socket, and we have a cutout on the bottom here to make it easier to put in the film. Moving to the front of the camera, we have a self-timer on the front, and I often find these cameras with a self-timer stuck down. For those of you who don't know about these cameras, they require a battery for operation, and if there is not a charged battery in the battery chamber, or there's some kind of electrical problem with the camera, the shutter will not fire. In most cases, when you put a battery in one of these cameras and you depress the shutter button, the self-timer will start winding back up and the shutter will eventually fire. A wonderful thing about the DC compared to the RC and RD is that it is a more reliable camera. The RD is a much more expensive and hard to find camera, but it suffers from sticky shutter blades and aperture blade. It's not as reliable as the mechanical shutter which comes in the 35 SP or the smaller 35 RC. It's a wonderful camera, but about half of the RDs I've come across have sticky or lagging shutters because of this problem. They're not especially hard to clean up and get running again, but that is a problem which you'll run across with them. The RC has a very reliable shutter which very seldom sticks or drags, but it has a very unreliable light meter. And I'm lucky that if I get 10 of these cameras and 3 of them have a working light meter, I think it's lucky. As far as the DC, these are very reliable cameras, and 9 out of 10 which I come across, if I put a battery in them, they're going to work. Be warned that the self-timer here, if it's pushed down partially, just a little bit, the shutter will not operate even if you have a battery inside, and the self-timer will not release when you press the shutter button. If you put a battery inside and it's not working and this is partially down, push it all the way down to charge the self-timer. Then press the shutter release button, and provided the battery's good and the contacts and electronics are okay, the self-timer should start running down and the camera should operate. Of course, we have the focusing helicoid here, and unlike cameras like the Scale Focus Trip 35, this is a true rangefinder camera, and you really need to have an accurate rangefinder when you're shooting a large aperture f1.7 lens. You have to set the film speed using the dial on the front here, and you have to make sure, to make it easier, you have to focus the camera to close focus, and you'll find a kind of knurled edges. In this case, I guess the 1 o'clock and 7 o'clock positions, and you can turn the dial, and as you do, you look through the window here and turn it until the number in the window matches the film speed of the film you have loaded in the camera. So quite simple. Loading film in the camera is also simple. Push down on the catch here and pop open the film door. As I said, there's a cutout here which allows you to easily insert a roll of film. Put in the film, simply pull the film leader across the chamber here and feed it into the take-up spool, and go ahead and wind the film and fire the shutter until it's pulling across evenly and the holes on the film are engaging the teeth here on the take-up sprocket. Then simply close the door and wind the camera until the number 1 shows in the film counter window. That's pretty much it for the review of this camera. The wonderful thing about this camera is it is a very simple camera. You don't really have to do anything with it. It doesn't require much in the way of thought. All you have to do to operate this camera is wind the film, focus, and shoot. The camera selects the best aperture and shutter speed for the available light. It's simple and it's almost foolproof. It's like maybe simple as on the Olympus Trip 35, but then I believe this camera is more reliable than the Trip 35, and I prefer the battery-powered CDS light meter over the selenium light meter in the Trip 35. On the other hand, the Trip 35 doesn't require batteries and won't leave you stuck if the battery goes dead. But as I said, it's quite easy to get a battery for this camera. You don't need any adapters or anything like that. You just put an LR44 or SR44 battery in here and it's good to go. Anyway, that's it for my video. If you want to see more videos, I'll be posting more videos about different cameras in the near future. I'm still working on getting a lot of these put together and cleaned up and making videos about them. Once again, if you're interested in buying this camera, I'll be listing it for sale shortly. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you tune in again soon.